What we're going to look at now is adding our filtering options into our Angular application. And currently when we load up our matches page, we just see the number of users already filtered by gender because I'm logged in as Lola, who's a female user. By default, as soon as I log in, it's going to show me a list of the male users. And we can see that we've got 8 of them in this case. So what we want to do is supply the filtering options at the top so the user can select between a specific age range and whether they want to see male or female users in this case. And we'll also add a header at the top so they can see the number of matches that have been returned, and also this will change once they've selected different filtering options. So let's head back to VS Code and we'll start to implement this. And where we're going to start is our member list component HTML. We're going to make some changes to the top of this component so that we can display the total numbers, etc. And for this part, because it's just HTML at this stage, I'm just going to paste in the HTML we need for this. And you can find this in the snippets for the resources attached to this lesson. So first of all, just at the top, I'm just going to paste in the opening div, which is really just going to be an h2 specifying the number of matches found. And if we just go back to these snippets, the next part that we'll just paste in is just grab all of this text with the form, the opening form to the closing form tag, and a little bit of spacing between the selection buttons and the matches that have been returned. And we'll just paste this in just below this container with a margin top of 5. Let's just paste in the form. It's a little bit verbose and it's really just adding some buttons and a select tag into our page. And we'll need to remove a little bit of spacing from this container as well. So we'll just drop this down to margin top of 3. And let's just go and see how this looks in our page. So we can see we've got the title at the top, 8 matches found, which matches what we've got inside this page at the moment. And we've just got some filtering options, empty at the moment, but we'll add the functionality and the properties in so that we start to display things in here. The age from and the age to, by default it's going to match what we have in our API, which is 18 to 99. And it's also going to show males in this case. And we'll allow the user to select different options from this and then click this button to actually apply the filters. And we've also got a reset filter to return them back to this view of the page where there's no filtering being applied. So let's set this up in our component, and if we head back to VS Code, we'll need to open up our component file for this. So I'll just switch over to the member list component.ts. And we're going to add some properties that we're going to make use of in our form. First of all, I'm going to get the user themselves, so I'll say user of type user. And we're storing our user information inside our local storage, so we can go and retrieve it from there. So I'll say json.parse, so we convert this into an object. And I'll say local storage.getItem, and in this case it's going to be user. We also want to supply some values for our select tag in the HTML, because this options is going to need to have something inside it, and this is going to be for our gender. So just below this I'll add another property and call this gender list, and this is going to be set to an array of values, and each one's going to be an object. So the value will be male, and the display name or display will be males, and the second option will have a value of female, and the display will be female or females. And we'll also supply some user params here as well as a property, and this is going to be an empty object to start with, so we'll just say user params of type any is equal to an empty object. So we're going to set some initial parameters for these user params, which reflects what we're doing in our API. So the minimum age will be 18, max age will be 99, and the gender will be opposite to the currently logged in user's gender. So we'll set these up in our ng on init, and we'll say list.userparams.gender is equal to, and we'll use the same process we did on a server. We'll just use a ternary operator to set the value to the opposite to the current user's gender. So we'll say list.user.gender equals, and we'll say female. And if it is a female that's logged in, then we'll return male. If not, then we'll return female. And then we'll say list.userparams.minage equal to 18. And we'll say list.userparams.maxage equals 99. So we're also providing the user an option to reset the filters back to when they initially loaded the page. So what we'll do is we'll just copy all of these 3 lines of code, and I'll just add a method called resetFilters, and I'll just paste in these different values, and following this I'll just call a loadUsers method, which will then take these values and pass them in to our loadUsers and get the user back to where they were before. So now we have this in place, we can go back to our template and start populating the elements in our HTML so that we use these values we've just added to our components. So first of all, we'll turn this into an Angular form, and it's just a very simple form that we're using here. So we'll just use a template form for this, and we'll just say hash form equals ngForm, and then we'll add the ngSubmit event equal to, and we'll just call a loadUsers in this case. And because it's a template form, we'll just use an ngModel to set up the two-way binding to our component. So let's just bring this down and say a-ngModel for the age. And this is the minimum age, so I'll say userparams.minAge. And I'll do the same for the max age. So I'll say a-ngModel equals userparams.maxage. And then we can deal with our select input. So let's just do the same again. And in this select, we'll say a-ngModel equals userparams.gender. And then in our option, we'll add an ngFor so that we can loop over the genders in our gender list and display them as options that the user can select. So we'll use the a-ngFor snippet, and we'll say let gender of gender list. And then for the value that we're going to return from this, so we'll say value equals gender.value, and inside the option itself we'll use gender.display so that we show either males or females inside the select box. But what we send up to the server is either male or female rather than males or females. And we'll scroll down a little bit and we'll just add our click event to the reset filter. So let's add a click event and we'll call our reset filter method that we created. And in this case it was called reset filters, not filter. So that's our template set up. Now let's head back to our component, and we're going to need to update our loadUsers methods because we're going to need to pass in our user params information to our getUsers method. So we'll add, in addition to the pagination, we'll also add another parameter and say list.userparams. And obviously we haven't set up our getUsers method to accommodate this additional parameter yet. So let's head back to our user service so that we can deal with this. And inside our getUsers method, let's add a parameter for our user params. So I'll just add in user params, and this again is going to be optional. And just below the check to see if we've got a paging information, we'll add a check to see if there's any user params. So we'll say if user params is not equal to null, then we'll start to populate our params with our user params. So we'll say params equals params dot append, and the first one's going to be min age, and we'll set this to user params dot min age. And I'll just copy this line down a few times because it's going to be relatively similar, and I'll swap min age for max age in the second one, and this will be user params dot max age. And in the third one, it's going to be gender and user params dot gender. And I don't need a fourth one, so I'll just delete this for now. So these parameters should now be passed up with our other params, and we should be able to go back and test this in the browser now to make sure this is all configured and working correctly. We can see that we've got our ages populated inside our template, and if I click on to show females and apply filters, I now swap to just showing the females, and it's 4 that have been returned because we're filtering out the currently logged in user, so that seems to be fine. And if I click on the reset filter button, this takes me back to the male users button. If I then filter out ages, and let's start with age 24 to 99 and click on apply filters, I remove the younger users, and there's 6 found in this case, and they should all be older than 24, and that is indeed the case. If I then add a maximum age, and I'll say 34 in this case, and then apply filters, we see that we've got just users between 24 and 34 now, so that's fine as well. If I click on females and apply filters, then again I get the correct information returned with just one user between the age of 24 and 34. And if I click on reset filters, I go back to exactly where I was before. So this has all worked correctly, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So next on our list of things to do is to take a look at how we can sort these users based on when they were either last active or how long they've been a member since. So we'll take a look at doing that next.